So as promised, I will be making a video today in regards to D3 setting, D3 farming setups that most of you guys may have trouble with. Again, guys, if you watch the last like 2 or 3 videos I made for these, it's following the same formula. Just use whatever mob fleet you have that's cheap and then just work around that. It's pretty simple. So as always, the requirements this time around is going to be 1700 aviation and 800 evasion. This right here is more carrier and more destroyer oriented, so you just build around fleets with those and so forth, and you're good to go, right? So the fleets I'm using right now are for leveling purposes. This is not efficient whatsoever, and I advise you guys to prioritize EXP first, unless the gear is like super important to the point where you need a lot of it and it's very limited. But this time around it's reuse days, and reuse days are obtained in multiple areas. Not to mention there's multiple alternatives to reuse days as well too. So it's not as important as say like the French baguette gun back when it first came out before the war archives, because there's no other way to get it back then, right? So prioritize your EXP. Once you're done with the EXP or whatever, you want to do as efficient as possible. Try to keep things low regardless if they're level 120 ships or not. Then you can go ahead and work on min-maxing if you really want to get to that point. But I advise that most people beforehand work on getting ships that you want to level up first for EXP before worrying about being efficient and doing all that other stuff first. Alright guys, that being said, let's talk about the fleets. So here's the first fleet, nothing unusual that you guys shouldn't be aware of. I talked about this fleet many times before. The Saratoga and Phoenix combo, the USS patented special for farming that I like to call it. Very cheap setup, easy peasy, gets the job done, nothing to it. It's super simple, super simple, right? So we have Saratoga, nothing crazy equipped here. You can equip however you want. I personally just use the suppressor right here, but if you want to, you can do like a washing machine or something to get more evasion stat. Honestly, as long as you have one steam catapult, you're fine. You don't have to use 2, but I like to have 1 around with me. But having 2, if you want more damage, you can do that. But for stat required purposes, I like to put 1 on there. Now for Cassin here, you can equip her however you want. You don't have to bring her to begin with in general, because right here, if I were to do something like this, if I were to remove her from my setup or whatever, I'm gonna be a little bit short on evasion. But if I slapped on like more washing machines, I could easily get this done. But for the purpose of just like, I'm not gonna bother with it, it's only like 1 extra oil or so. I'm gonna keep her in. But again, you guys don't have to use her. I personally just use her because I'm just too lazy to figure out something out right now. I could do a little bit more thinking about how I want to build this fleet, but nothing crazy, because I'm not gonna be pestered with that, right? And if you want to make sure you get a little bit more sustain, give her a repair toolkit or the pearls tier with a little bit more health sustain. Equip her however you guys like. It doesn't have to be super crazy, just good enough, and so forth. And for Phoenix, I just used the setup right here: HG gun, French gun, and the sextuple AAs. You guys don't have to use these gear. You can bring it notched down. You should be fine for the most part. This setup is overkill. You don't have to need it. 1 repair toolkit for more HP regen and more health altogether. And for the war hedgehog, if you guys don't have hedgehog, just slap on like evasion or whatever. It just makes things a lot easier for me. You don't have to use it, or change to like a depth charge or something. But for the most part though, the hedgehog is overkill. You don't need the hedgehog. I just threw it on there just to speed things up, but you don't actually need this right here, right? So that's the mob setup right here. This will be your farming setup. It's super cheap. It is I think it's 21 oil, I believe. Yeah, 21 oil with just these 2, and then if Cassin's still around, it's 22 oil. But again, if you want to tweak up your boss fleet a little bit more, you can drop Cassin, save like 3-4 more oil if you want to. That is okay. And then for the boss fleet, you guys can just do whatever you want to fill in the slots. For me personally, I aim for EXP right here. So whatever ship that's not capped at 120, I just toss them in for a little bit more EXP, because as you guys already know, the boss node gives a lot of EXP, and that's what I run with, right? So again, no fancy gear here. Make sure you're filling up with a lot of washing machines, a lot of SG radars. Get the evasion stat going on, and good to go, right guys? So again, nothing crazy. I'm personally probably not going to use this all together. I'm probably just going to drop this right now. But this is how your fleet should look like, and then you're good to go. And then just farm. This costs probably like 21 times 6 oil, 126, and then whatever your boss fleet is. This is probably like 70 oil or something. But I know it's inefficient, but You can definitely bring this lower. I just want EXP, so that's why I bring it here for the boss fleet and so forth, right guys? Also, again, if you guys don't know, it doesn't have to be 120. 110 plus is fine. That gets the job done. Just if you want to low up ships, prioritize that first, alright? And here's setup number 2, similar to the last one, but this time we're doing on the second fleet instead of the first fleet. So this time we're doing a battleship and a DD setup. For the battleship, you guys can pick whatever AoE battleship you have. I'm using Sovetska Rosia. You guys can do whatever you want. I would recommend picking a AoE though. So anyone that's like Washington, if you have New Jersey, go ahead and use her too. PR ships aside, Alabama's good here. Nagato, I guess she could work here. If you're not having anti-air problems, she could work here. Key is okay. Saruga's okay. Belorosia could work too. Basically, anyone with like some kind of wave clear that'll help you out will make this an easy task for you. So I'm using Rosia. You guys can pick whatever you want. I'm just using her as an example. As for your destroyer, pick whatever destroyer you guys like. I prefer using Z23 because she's usually really good for these kind of wave clearing events and whatnot, especially after the DD update. Now her all-out assault went from 10 to 5, so now she's gonna be busting some ass right now in event farming, and you guys probably will see in the upcoming clip. But Z23 is my personal favorite for event farming. Very strong, and it's going to get even stronger after the update. Well, it's now even stronger after the update. So that's that setup. And as the boss fleet, once again, use whatever you guys want. I'm using EXP right here. I want EXP, so I'm using ships that are not 120 right now to be used in the boss fleet. So again, pick whatever ships you guys want. Just make sure you're filling up the stats accordingly. If you're lacking some stats, put in washing machines to give 40 evasion flat. And if you're lacking a lot of evasion altogether, throw some DDs in there. Like I'm using Kazagumo. There's 2 slots available for DDs, so use them for DDs or whatever and get that 800 evasion. And for the aviation, just toss in 2 carriers and then do whatever you want for the last slot. And that should be more than enough, honestly. If you're missing more than that though, toss in a 3rd carrier. But for the boss fleet though, just toss in whatever. Again, this fleet setup is going to be 15 plus 9, so 24 oil times 6, which is about 144, I believe. So is that 120? Yeah, 144, and then whatever the boss fleet is probably like 50, 60 oil, so probably close to 200. And then you have the 10 oil entry, so a little bit over efficiency prices, but it's the expense you want to have for EXP. Otherwise, you guys can cut this by a lot by just slotting in more evasion slotting more carriers for the evasion for the aviation stat and more destroyers for the evasion stat right here. And you can cut this down by a lot. You can cut this down by a lot. Now here's one of those weird setups. I know it looks weird, but trust me, it is. It actually works. So basically, the purpose of this setup is that you stack a lot of secondary procs or cross fleet barrage procs like Shinano and Perseus, and then you have one super fleet right here. So in this case, I'm using New Jersey and Suzuki. That's going to do the job. And what this fleet does is basically this one fleet right here is going to take on the whole map. I know it may sound weird, but yes, this fleet takes on the whole map. So it's going to have 0 ammo for the boss, but if it's strong enough, it should knock out the whole thing. So as you guys already know, New Jersey is a powerhouse of a battleship. She can solo the whole map. And then Suzuki is going to help with the wave clearing, help with the submarines and whatnot. She will take care of most of the front line, as New Jersey just throws in all the punches and the stuff in the background. So that's how it works. And as for the back line, you stack a lot of stuff that fits the requirement and gives some secondary barrages. So we have Perseus right here. Gear doesn't really matter because for the most part, these fleets don't do any fighting. So just toss in whatever you guys need. For the most part, they're just there for the barrages. Like Shinano is there for the Dreamwaker's bow. And Perseus is there for the, I believe it's one of these things right here. Or is it, it's one of these things. I believe it's this right here. Yeah, not in this fleet. So Waters of Styx. She's there for that, and just fit the requirements. It doesn't matter what you throw in here, as long as you're fitting the requirements for the stats below. So this fleet right here takes on the entire map, as this fleet right here just helps and supports from the other side into this one right here. So I will use Marco Polo as well too, but can't fit all these in without fitting the requirements, because 2 aircraft can fit it, but it's very, very tight or whatever, and I don't want to do that. So if you can fit Marco Polo in here, go ahead and do that. That'll help it out as well. But for the most part, that's the setup for this right here.